year was whatever 1 year after the Switch release was. 2018. I had just completed a post-grad program, started a grown-up career, and was looking to spend some of my hard-earned adult bucks in a desperate attempt to reclaim some of the magic that had been stripped away from me by the whole growing up thing. What better way to do that than by buying a Nintendo Switch? But because I was still somewhat financially responsible, I kept my eyes open for a used console online. Up until this point, I had pretty mixed experiences with online marketplaces. I was using Kijiji, which is like the Canadian version of Craigslist. It's still full of creeps, but they gave it a modern UI, which is kind of like picking out Benjamin Moore Grey Owl to paint your haunted house with. One morning I found an ad that was too juicy to not follow up on. Someone was selling a brand new Nintendo Switch for $100 less than the retail price. Keep in mind that this is when Switches were still sold out everywhere, and most listings were hundreds of dollars more. Despite this being wildly suspicious, I was also broke, so I was willing to tempt fate. So I messaged the seller to see if it was still available. They replied, and after some back and forth, they agreed to sell it to me. They told me they were selling the Switch because their daughter had received 2 for her birthday, and one was from family in another country, so they couldn't return it. This was, of course, not believable at all, but I really wanted a Switch, so I was willing to go a little colorblind around all of the red flags. They also texted like an old person. I can't really describe it, but I'm sure you know what I mean. I crafted the idea in my mind that maybe this was a sweet old man who inadvertently ended up with 2 Nintendo Switches and wanted to pay it forward to his local community. We arranged to meet in the parking lot of a Tim Hortons for the transaction. My wife came along with me and we showed up at the designated time. No sign of the seller. They knew what we were driving, so we sat parked somewhere where we would be completely visible. 15 minutes went by and I was about to brush this off as a bust. And then I saw him. At this point, I was still expecting a sweet man in his 50s to roll up beside us in whatever a 50-year-old drives, probably a Honda Odyssey, and we'd make some small talk about the weather while we had an amicable and not at all frightening transaction. But as soon as I saw the sketchy young man leaving the smoking convenience store across the parking lot lock eyes with our vehicle and start marching towards us like a goddamn Terminator, I knew in my gut it was him. He was carrying a plastic shopping bag which I assumed had the Switch in it. It did not make me feel better about what I was seeing. He came up to the rear driver's side door of the car and tried to get in. Luckily, the doors were locked and he fiddled with the handle a bit before giving up. It was at this point that I started to think that maybe this wasn't such a good idea. Despite the likelihood of getting stabbed growing higher by the minute, I stepped out of the car. He was weaselly and smelled like an ashtray, and he was looking around nervously like someone was after him. He asked if we could do the trade-off in the car, and at that time there was probably nothing I wanted less, so I told him I'd rather not. He seemed disappointed, but he discreetly passed me the plastic grocery bag to inspect the goods. As I pulled the Switch out of the bag to inspect it, I saw him reach into his pocket. I thought for sure this was it. I was gonna get stabbed over a Nintendo Switch in the parking lot of a Tim Hortons. This was my legacy. My widowed wife would have to tell people her husband died, shopping bag in hand, sprawled out on the hot pavement, all because he thought Super Mario Odyssey looked neat. He instead pulled out a flip phone. I'm not going to shame someone for the phone that they use, but in this particular context, it really didn't help me feel better about the fact I was holding a plastic shopping bag with a brand new game console in it. I hadn't even seen a flip phone in like 10 years. I'm surprised he could text me at all with having to press the number 7 4 times just to write the letter S. It's fucking medieval. He was growing visibly more nervous, which in turn was making me nervous. Did this man have enemies waiting in this coffee shop parking lot? I really didn't want to be in this situation any longer, and figured I'd rather pay the guy and get scammed than be around when whoever this guy was so scared of showed up. So I handed him the money and he scampered off. Somehow, despite this entire situation being highly unlikely to work out in my favor, I now had a fully functioning brand new Nintendo Switch. I mean, it definitely had to have been stolen though. But hey, I didn't steal it. I risked my life for this. I'm innocent, man. I stopped at a GameStop on the way home, bought Smash Bros, and pushed the whole experience deep into the recesses of my mind. The moral of the story is to always make sure to internalize traumatic situations. Wait, that doesn't sound right. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. If you didn't enjoy it, then I'll assume it was your Nintendo Switch that was stolen, and I'm sorry.